This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of In the Umpires Clubhouse. We've got a NBA ref today joining us on the show. Jimmy and Dale know him better than I do. So, Bill Spooner, welcome to the show, and I'm going to turn it over to Dale Scott. Go ahead, Dale.
Billy Spooner. I have a long history with Mr. Spooner. For those who do not know, he's a retired NBA official. 20, how many years, Bill?
32, actually.
30, okay, 32 years in the NBA. He was also, before that, a minor league baseball umpire. He went to umpire school the year before I did, in 1980, I believe, and he worked in the Northwest League, got promoted to the Texas League, but decided, well, he'll tell you about it, but he decided the basketball was the way he wanted to go. So welcome to the show, Mr. Spooner. I've known you a long time, and we'll talk about the first time we met here pretty soon.
Bill,
Yeah.
it's
I'm hoping to relive that moment.
Bill, it's nice to have you on. We've had the hockey people on, we've had football people on, and I think he's the first basketball guy, isn't he, guys?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you're a star, Bill. We're gonna make you a star, and everybody record. Remember to subscribe.
Well, actually, we tend to live in obscurity, so this is a new facet here.
Hey, Bill, we often on this show with when umpires come on, we first thing I like to do is what will get you run or what will get you a tee faster than anything in the NBA? What's the magic word or what will get you a tee faster than anything? That's probably my question.
Later in my career, was a loud profanity. It really depended on the situation. And also during my career, they changed where if you had any physical demonstrative movement like this, waving a guy off or clapping or throwing your arm, that was kind of an automatic technical foul. But for the most part, it was a profanity, or let's say they said something kind of demeaning to you in front of the other bench. Well, you're going to have to whack him, because if they hear what he said and you don't do anything about it,
yeah,
things aren't going to turn out well for you that night or any other night.
Yeah.
Again.
Well, that's something that when I, at camps or clinics or whatever, there's two dugouts there. Just because dugout A is the one I'm having a situation with, dugout B is watching and listening to the whole damn thing, right? And so if I treat A one way and then B says, or let something go by, and then B says, guess what? I guess, all bets are off. We get to do that today. So, we are always cognizant, just like you were saying, that we're officiating two teams there, even though one may be the one that's, on our ass right now. But
the boss who hired me, Daryl Garrettson, used to have a saying with, what you permit, you promote.
Yes, exactly.
There you go.
Well, if you allow it, guess what? The crazies out there are going to push it to the next level. So, yeah, you got to take care of business, right?
Yeah, it's like kids. They'll see how far they can go.
Pretty much.
And I'm not trying to change the subject because we have Bill here, but you know what? I just because I know Dale had commented on it, but the College World Series, Angel Compost did a heck of a job on doing his job of exactly what we're talking about. Dugout A is chirping in the first and won't let up, and dugout B is watching.
Yeah.
Coastal Carolina's going crazy, LSU's watching. And you know what? I'm just going to give my 2 cents. Angel did a heck of a job on that.
Unbelievable job. In a situation that nobody wants. I mean,
right.
You walk out there in a championship-type game, the last thing you want is some confrontation, some BS, especially in the first inning. But as I posted, we're recording this the day after that incident. So that's why it's so fresh on our minds. But when you give a warning and another warning, and I mean, he was trying to let him stay in the game. He was trying to put the ball in his court and say, guess what? Enough's enough. Stop it here. At some point, you have to eject. He ejected himself is what he did, but you can't just, he tried. I mean, a regular season game, I don't, he probably doesn't get 3 warnings, right? I mean, but a championship game, he's really trying to keep him in. He just he made a decision. The coach did that he didn't want to stay in, and that's what happened. But
And that's pretty much true through all sports. I mean,
oh
every
yeah,
sport, if you give a guy enough warnings, I'm sure it's the NBA is the same way. Baseball, hockey, you know what? You give a guy enough warnings. Hey, eventually you have to either put up or shut up, one or the other. And once again, Angel did a heck of a job. If anybody cares to listen about that, so
Oh yeah, I
Has,
agree with you. I agree with you. He
has the
watching. He was outstanding in that World Series all
yes.
through it. Man, that guy
uh,
worked his ass off.
has the NC2A backed them up on this, or are they just staying silent on it all?
I haven't seen anything yet.
yeah, I haven't
I
either.
know they're doing a lot of stuff with the two Coastal Carolina coaches, the head coach and his assistant. I know they're doing a lot of stuff with that, but I haven't seen anything official from the NCAA on this yet.
And really,
But
that
I will tell you this: a lot of the comments that are coming along with it are backing up Angel. So
well, that coach did himself no favors in his post game.
I agree. I
mean, he
agree.
buried himself. He basically showed why he should have been ejected.
Yes, exactly.
know,
I only said something about 3 pitches, and he kept going like, I only said something about 3 pitches after he warned me. You missed three. Okay, thank you. I don't
But,
want to be your
Billy-
I don't want to be your defense attorney, but guess what?
yeah, good luck with that.
Hey, Billy, I got a serious question about basketball, though.
Sure.
Longtime fan, first time
Caller.
hater.
You beat me to it, Dale.
But anyway, I know you put in a 32-year career, which first of all in itself is amazing. But coming from long-time umpires, 30 years, Dale 32, 33. When you first got into the NBA, because I watched you in college. I remember you and we hooked up one time here at Portland Community,
University of Portland.
Portland State, and I watched everything like that, and you was very. I think you went to the NBA really quick after that. How much? I try to put it the right way. The game has changed just like baseball has. When did the NBA become so physical? I guess is the way I'm putting it. What led up to that? What led up to that point? Because I don't think the game was as physical when you first started, but probably when you walked off the field or off the court, it was it's still I mean, it's a physical game now. I mean,
Well,
brutally physical.
you mean more like running?
Banging on the floor, and
There, there is some initial contact, but I wish there were more games to watch. But the season's over. But watch the defender when you watch a game. Don't. That's what referees do. What they call referee the defense. You'll see a lot of the contact is the offensive player banging into the defender. Okay, now he has him set. Maybe he gets a little bit of a advantage on it. But when I got into the league at the start, it was the inside game. It was the big guy era. So it was pretty physical then. The difference is now they're moving at such faster speed.
yeah,
And the game is more all open court. And the players are just fast and good and graceful, athletic, and yada yada. That you see more, I guess, encounters is what I mean. You see open court, guy kind of trying to go one guy and another guy picks him up. Where in the old days, it was dumping into the big guy and kind of let him do his thing and then kick it out and have a jump shot from like 12, 15-foot jump shot. Now, it's all
39 feet.
the game is, I think analytics had a lot to do with that. They figured out that the more shots they got up, the more chances they had to score.
Yeah, that is true.
Looks on a mathematical basis, no brainer. Get them up, and if they go in, even half the time, that's more points.
Analytics, everything. I mean,
Yeah.
you see. I mean, obviously with baseball, it's completely changed a lot of philosophical way of approaching the game. I mean, I'm sure, I'm sure some of it makes sense, but sometimes I wonder, when a guy, when a guy is mowing guys down, but the analytics say here in the sixth inning or something that he shouldn't see this guy the third time or whatever, and they take. I mean, I just sometimes I wonder if we're overthinking shit, and
Absolutely.
not just playing the game. But Billy,
Yeah.
you're from you grew up in California, is that correct?
Did actually born in Texas, living in El Paso, Texas, a double A town,
Yes.
and luckily and fortunately moved to a big league town outside of Los Angeles, and grew up there from about the age of 9 on.
And I always forget, but is it San Diego State or that you went to?
I did for a brief moment, yes.
Right, right. You were a wide receiver. I mean, you were fast and you cut routes and you were catching passes and an all-star at San Diego State. Is that correct?
No, not at all. No, actually, just the opposite. That's when I realized that I was a pretty good receiver, but I was really not a Division I receiver. I was a decent D2 and a pretty good D3, but I was not a D1 receiver.
Well, you started. You were doing basketball, but you also went to umpire school and got a job out of that and started working at the Northwest League and the Cal League. And then in the off season of baseball, you're working, a lot of basketball.
Right.
So you kind of had a dual front going on there.
Yeah.
How many years were you in the minor leagues?
3.
So and you made a decision that you wanted to devote your energies to basketball. What came about that? Why'd you come up with that?
I tried to look in the future, like you think you can when you're 24 or 5 years old.
I had all the answers then.
And that was the day before the umpires had vacations, and you'd leave in late February and March and come back in October.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was, as much as I enjoyed baseball, I liked baseball, I wasn't in love with baseball like I was refereeing basketball. And I really left baseball to go and try to just be a full-time D1 referee. I thought that was the route, because pros in college don't really mesh together. You don't go from one to the other.
Yeah.
These 2 different programs. And so I thought, hey, I'll be a D1 ref and get into sales, so I have the flexibility to do that. And the NBA thing came around, 4 or 5 years later, because I was working D1 partially, and also the league was expanding, and they went from the 2-person referee system to the 3, and they needed a significant numbers on their staff. So I was, in that respect, I was right place, right time.
Yep.
And how did that? Were you scouted by them, or did you
also,
actively pursue NBA, or did it just kind of fall in your lap?
Because it was such a separate entity. You're either a college referee or a pro referee. It really, the twain does not normally meet. And even to this day, that kind of exists. Until you give up the pro aspirations, then the college, supervisors will start to, see if, how you are, and decide whether they'll hire you or not. I lost my train of thought on that. Sorry.
Well, how did you find out about the NBA? How did that come about?
So, my referee godfather, a guy named John Danglis, who took me to D1 when I was probably a little too early to get there, was an old friend of Daryl Garrison, who at the time was a supervisor of officials. And they were, really combing every nook and cranny for referees. And the college guys back then, this was late 80s, weren't as proprietary as they are now. And so John Danglis recommended another colleague of mine, Greg Willard, who, God rest his soul, has passed away. But Greg and I were kind of the 2 hot shots out here in Southern California. And Danglis said, you should take a look at these 2 guys. We got invited to a summer camp, and we got, offered a contract.
Wow.
So it was kind of a very quick minor league tutelage. But in those days, the first 4 or 5 years of our career, we would work about half as many NBA games and about half as many, which back then was a CBA game. And it was the Wild Wild West. And it was 2-person, not 3. And it was crazy, like 3,000 seat arenas that were jams. And so that's a big, huge, loud high school type gym. Or you're playing in an arena that has like 14 people in it. Uh, it has a lot of, and then the players, they all thought they should be in the NBA, and so the referees for that matter. And it was like going to the Wild West. It was crazy. I had 8 technical fouls in one game. I told a buddy of mine, the same guy that got hired the same year I did, and I said, David, I'm going to get fired. He goes, why? What'd you do? I said, I had 8 technical fouls tonight. I'm going to get fired. He goes, I had 9 last night. Don't worry about it. You already talked to the boss, and they were all legit. So in that league, if you didn't, let people not stomp on you, it was kill or be killed.
That's kind of the way, the correlation a little bit, Dale. That's the kind of the way that we kind of started out. Like we were, we stayed in the minor. We were under major league contract, but we stayed in the minor leagues for the first really 2 months of the season, unless they needed us right away. And then that's when we came. We kind of did the same thing to
Yeah,
a
yeah.
degree, and it was a little bit different for us. We were known as major league umpires in the minor leagues, though, so that might be the only difference. And
Yeah, because one of the things that they hired some of the referees had in the CBA, which was their minor league, but they didn't feel they had enough guys that were used to working in big arenas. So that's why they went to some of the college guys. I was the right age and, the right time, like I said. And then, got a chance and didn't screw it up, just like you guys did.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Well, total, be fair here, Bill. I fresh out of umpire school, I get assigned Yuma, Arizona, and I am thrilled because I'm fresh. I got an assignment. I got a spring training assignment. Not everybody got that. And I show up at Yuma, and I'm told that I'm going to be rooming with a guy named Bill Spooner, and it's his second year. And that's all I know about him, basically. And so I drive into the beautiful Motel 6 that the Padres put us up at, the minor league players and umpires, and they did pay for the key so we could watch TV every day. And so I knock on the door and opens the door, and here's this guy named Bill Spooner, and he's standing, he's holding a beer, and he's got shorts on and a shirt, and he opens the door, and I go, "Hey, Bill, Dale Scott." He looks at me, he looks down at my feet, looks back up at me, and he goes, "Do you like beer?" I said, "Yeah, I like beer." He goes, "All right, come on in." And that was my intro to the minor leagues. My intro to my first roommate in baseball was Billy Spooner, and we were there for a couple weeks. Billy, I was thrilled to be in Yuma. Let us know what you thought of Yuma in your second year at spring training in Arizona.
Well, the first thing is you knew at least my name. I knew less of you than that. We just knew that some guy from umpire school, the advanced camp. We had the rookie. That was all. So that was the first thing. Yuma was like back then. Is Yuma still a spring training site?
No.
No.
Okay. It was like the outpost. You were like being banished. But the great thing about it is no one was around, so you could do whatever the hell you wanted.
That's true.
And but I remember with Dale, I think we used to umpire. 12, 15 innings every day.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it was hot out in the desert of Yuma, and we were out in a field that was, there wasn't a tree around, so the wind just, yeah.
Well, because none of the minor leagues there, they had a AAA, AA, and then 2 single A teams.
Yes.
And the minor leagues, nobody, the big league team would play 2 or 3 home games there against, big league opponents, and then they'd go on the road. Well, no minor league opponents came from Phoenix or Tucson or anybody to go to Yuma. So the AAA team played the AA team every day, and the 2 single A teams played every day. And Bill and I, the 2 bottom of the 4 of us, the other 2 guys were AAA, AA umpires. So Bill and I worked the A-ball scrimmage every day. And of course, because it wasn't a real game, it was a scrimmage between their 2 A-ball teams. Oh, we got a couple more pitchers we want to see. And so we would go 10, 11, 12, 13 inning, whatever, until they were done, right?
Yeah.
We were actually working the day that President Reagan was shot, and we were on the field. And so the minor league director came in and shut everything down, said the president's been shot. We went back to the hotel, and Bill and I watched that, for hours, what was going on. And we thought we'd only worked, a few innings. We thought that was awesome. Well, the problem was the next day, because we'd only worked a few innings, they had us go like 20 innings the next
Yeah.
day.
That's
It
right.
was like,
I was
are you
on the
shitting me?
like we were in the field between like 5 hours or something like that. It was crazy. Yeah, maybe longer.
But I can remember always, because I went from Vero Beach, the Dodgers, and I was
Which
at
is
Vero
the
Beach.
diamond.
Well, it was a resort,
Yeah.
and that you talk about Reagan. That's what spurred this. I was there when Reagan got shot, and of course Tommy Lasorda held court about it and everything like that. We did too. We had the day off also with that day. I went from Vero Beach, and they switched me to Arizona because I had moved to Portland, and I ended up with Casa Grande.
Oh, good Lord.
And I went from Vero Beach for 2 years to Casa Grande like you said, Billy, like you, I've been to Yuma, believe me. But Casa Grande was in the middle of nowhere, and it was
Zero win.
60 miles away from Phoenix. So if you did want to see anybody, you had to have a designated driver, or you just took a shot, one or the other. And Yuma was one of those towns. You're exactly right. And Palm Springs was a cool place to be because there was a lot of umpire. They put 6 umpires there, so that
Mhm.
wasn't too bad. So,
In Palm Springs, there's a lot more to do than Yuma.
oh,
You know,
Oh
absolutely.
my, yeah, you
I
got
mean,
that right. I
Well,
mean,
they have an
our highlight, if we really want to go out to a fancy thing, we went to the beef, beans, and beer place. What's the place that like that was the Diamond restaurant there. I
I
mean,
thought
I,
it was
I remember
I
in
thought it
you.
was Sizzler.
Well, Sizzler would have been an upgrade. But the thing is that this Motel Six had their entire minor league players there, plus the four of us umpires. There were no phones in the room. You had a rack of pay phones outside the manager's office, and if there happened to be a message for you, they would tape it up on the window of the manager's office. Like Dale Scott, you have a message or whatever. And then you go in to get your message. You had a ton of Latin players, and I'd call home or something, and I'd have in stereo a couple Latin players talking to somebody back home, and for the most part they didn't have indoor voices, and it was it was just, I mean, but I was thrilled because I was fresh out of school. I mean, I thought this was the greatest thing ever. Now, as I progressed in baseball and saw other spring training venues in the minor leagues, I quickly realized how screwed we were in Yuma. but that was my first experience with professional baseball as an umpire, and Billy got to see it, be a part of be a part of it. Billy, you made it to AAA,
The
and then
beauty
you
about
decided
Yuma
to go
though
full
was
time.
the beauty about Yuma though was there was an RV show every day. So
Well, that's true.
the RV
Well, and
capital of the world.
you could go right across into Mexico if you wanted to.
Paul
Absolutely.
Paul Runge loved Yuma.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Paul Runge absolutely loved Yuma. He had every spring training I think ever was in either Yuma or Palm Springs.
Palm Springs. Yeah, he had a like a timeshare or something in Palm
Yeah,
Springs or something. Yeah.
exactly. And Yuma, he literally took an RV.
Yeah.
And they had dirt bikes and stuff because I got stuck behind. I was under contract with the American League, but Paul Runge came in one day and said, "Kid, I hurt my leg on an RV going through the dunes and stuff." He goes, "You need to work the plate today." I said, "Okay, I'm not National League. I'm American League." He says, "That doesn't fucking matter." Okay, thank you. Got it, big boy.
Well, that's the only time it didn't matter, apparently.
Exactly.
Hey, Bill. I'm a big NBA fan of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, Bird, Magic. And Larry Bird to me was unbelievable. He was the Nolan Ryan of the NBA. That guy was a freak. I mean, he was unreal. You got
Yeah.
any good Larry Bird stories? Because that guy could talk trash with nobody could top him. And he could, the thing is about Larry, he could back it up, you know?
Well, truthfully, I get, not knowing Larry personally, but he was very quiet and a very mellow kind of a trash talker, for what I understand. But I can tell you that what my encounter I had with him, probably I bet you maybe my second, third year in the league, if that, because I caught the very end of Larry's career.
Mm. Okay.
But he said something to me. I was in the lane, so 2 shots, something like that, and give it the ball to the free throw shooter. He says something, and I said something really smart ass back to him. And as I'm backing out, going toward the sideline, he just kind of looks over his shoulder and goes, "Okay, great. I'll see you next month in the playoffs." Knowing full well I was nowhere near working the playoffs. Okay, I was still 3-4 years away, and I go backing out, and he says this to me. I went, "Oh man, he just killed me." He just, I got nothing to say because he just killed me. So, and from what I gather, that was his type of trash talking. He was just going boom, boom, like, your mom's going to be embarrassed tonight. Saying those guys, the guy who's going to, guard him. And he wouldn't go on and on and on. He'd just say, "Hey, listen, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to embarrass you in front of your mom tonight." Stuff like that. And then put up, 4 3-pointers in a row in the kid's, face and go, I told you. So,
Well,
like you said, he could back it up.
I was watching this thing on YouTube about when Larry was coaching the Pacers, and practice was over, and there was, this was in the early 2000s, I think, and Larry was way retired. I mean, he hurt, he couldn't move, arthritis, and his knees or back were bad. So he's walking out of the gym, and a ball rolls over to him. It's a practice court, and he stands there, picks up the ball, and starts jacking threes, 10 in a row. Then turned around, and just walked out of the gym, and the guys were like, "What did we just see?" And he walked away like it was nothing.
Mic
That's
drop.
just, yeah. See it, Mike. Exactly, Dale. Boom. See ya. That's
Yeah.
how it's done, kids. And nobody could top him.
Well,
Okay, Dale and I always get asked who our favorite player was. I mean, that's a pat question. I'm sure it's a pat question in the NBA, but I've never heard an NBA official actually say who their favorite player was. I'm sure you have one or two.
Wow. It's funny, Jimmy. I don't really. I'm saying instead of my favorite, I made guys I had a real good rapport with, like a better for whatever reason than other players in the league. And one was Kobe, and the other guy comes to mind was is 2 guys actually is Mike Conley, who's still playing in the league, and I caught him towards the end of my career. But he was just a really nice guy, and we just had good communication with each other. And then a guy named Shane Battier. He
Yeah.
played in Miami for a long time, went to Duke, and was a really good player. And just always felt I had a really good rapport, maybe more so than other players and those guys.
but there's a long list of the ones you didn't get along with.
Pardon?
There's a long list of the ones you didn't get along with. Is that?
Yeah. We'd be here. How long is the show?
Well, we can do a 2 or 3-parter, whatever you need.
I might need it. Yeah.
Yeah,
both all been there.
You should ask Dale about Ceto Gas, and those two are tight.
Yes, they were tight.
Yeah. Did you have any coach or players say, "Meet me outside after the game's over, and we'll settle this once and for all"? That's what Cito's.
And where was that? What league?
Cito, that he was managing Toronto. It was in Texas.
I was in the big leagues. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, and I mean, he was the type of guy that if I said it's a day game, he said it's a night game. I mean, it just we just could not get on the same page. He did. He said that he did a pitching. Went to go talk to the pitcher, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And so I go up there, and he says, balls and strikes, boom, boom. And I run him, and that's when he said, he goes, "I'm sick and tired of this." He goes, "Meet me outside the stadium after this game's over, and we'll settle it once and for all." And I said, I'm writing down on my lineup. I go, "Well, Dr. Brown will just love that you threatened one of his umpires." And he goes, "Fuck Dr. Brown." I said, "He's going to love that too." best fine I ever got out of Dr.
That always
Brown.
looks good in an ejection report.
I say, okay, so your first NBA game was 1989. You worked. Do you know how many total games did you work, Bill? Do you know?
Trying to remember. To tell you the truth, my daughter added it up one time, and I think it's close to maybe like 12 or 1300, maybe a little bit more.
That's a lot of running. That's a lot of running up and down, Bill.
Mileage. There was 3 or 4 years with injuries that I missed. So,
right.
But, and they actually did the mileage one time, and my daughter, and it came out somewhere around like 7,500 or 8,000 miles.
Wow.
I guess that has a lot to explain why the knee replacement and much other surgeries, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Yeah, hockey refs are the same way. I mean, that skating, and like the umpires, you guys don't get a timeout. You may get a TV timeout for what, 30 seconds, and get a Gatorade or whatever, but you
Right.
guys don't have time to go to the bathroom. You're up there running and down for until halftime, and then you got another second half to do that. That's amazing. And same with the hockey refs. They're skating the whole time. I mean, that's mind-boggling on because as Jimmy knows, skating any length of time is not easy. That's brutal.
Well, it's amazing because hockey players only play about 45 seconds at a time
Right.
because
Yeah.
of
Yes.
how difficult it is and what you put out to just get through those 45 seconds, especially at that level. So, like you said, the referees they're not skating, this, but they're having to do a lot on the ice there, and the fact that they can do what they do is pretty
What's
impressive.
they're Olympic skaters. I mean,
Exactly.
they're going backwards. There's there's no place to hide. There's no place to get out of the way. There's boards. You got to just jump or whatever. But yeah, that is
But that's
really
that's
amazing.
one thing that if you pay attention to hockey and stuff like that, and which I actually was in hockey, not team wise and stuff, but I played hockey before I even played baseball. But the
Mhm.
thing about it is that if you watch hockey and you hear if you get the luxury of hearing a broadcast of the of the bench and stuff, you always hear the head coach say, "Watch your shifts, watch your shifts, watch your shifts." And what he means by that is don't stay on the ice. You can't stay on the ice for 45 minutes to 45 seconds to a minute because you're gassed. And
Yeah.
if you're gassed, you can't play defense. And it's phenomenal to watch those guys. But Bob's right. You guys were or are nonstop. And I guess our closest thing is working the plate, and ours are up and downs. And they calculated one time how many we do, and I said I'm not even going to think about that anymore because my knee, you do you have metal in your knees yet?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Near 3 years ago.
yeah. I'm in year 8 on that too, and it's still not going very well.
Uh,
But
right here.
uh, yeah, it's I can understand that. Anybody that's ever done it can understand it.
Well,
So
my knees, knock on wood, is fine. The only place that I had trouble,
bite me.
I was getting hit in the head all the time, so that was a problem.
Didn't know how to duck.
I'm a duck that can't duck, for crying out loud.
Or like Davy Phillips, right?
Dale, yesterday I was on YouTube for a couple seconds, and they showed the 5 worst umpire collisions, hits, or something like that, and you were number one.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
showed I don't remember who the umpires are, but remember the guy who got hit by the ball on the side of the head. He had turned to pick up the play at first base. He got drilled in the side of the head from a really bad throw.
Yep.
A couple of guys got hit with the broken bats.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Here's the one, and you tried to stay up with the stagger back. You could just tell you just took an absolute right, perfect, dead center punch.
Yeah, yeah. It was.
And, you got Tyson popped you a good one.
Somebody said where that hit, and in the jaw and everything. Somebody said that's like a upper right from Tyson. Just,
Yeah.
boom.
Actually, I was watching that. I had retired. I was already retired when Dale got clocked. And actually, for some reason, I don't know why, but the game was on, and Kay and I were sitting there, and he got drilled. I looked at Kay and I said, "This is not going to be good. I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you that right now. This is not going to be good. Not that any of them are, but
Right.
he had, Dale had numerous, shots to the noggin. So
Well, luckily it didn't affect me at all.
This
So
explains everything right there.
Well,
really,
they asked him where he was when he got drilled, and he said San Francisco, the Castro.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
No, you're concussed. Let's go.
I just went back to my happy place. But you had one of the greatest line spoons when the minor league umpire that we had that was always seemed a little goofy and a little out there, and one day he said, "I'm confused," and you go, how can you tell?"
Who was it? Tell us who it is.
It was Barnes.
Oh, Jesus. I think I remember that now.
It was like along the lines of, how do you know the difference?
Yeah, yeah. Okay. You're like, give me a heads up because I can't tell the difference. I'm just,
Hey, Bill, you said you were from El Paso.
Oh,
Did now you got to have stories about the Dudley Dome. I mean, that place wasn't even called decrepit. It was worse than decrepit. It was what it
Uh,
was.
my best recollection of the Dudley Dome is not when I was living there, because like I said, we moved away when I was eight and a half, and I know I went to some games there. But is I'm umpiring first base, and it was, I think actually it was my first series. No, it wasn't my first series. I take it back. But it was my first time to El Paso, and Daryl Strawberry hit a ball, and the El Paso was different. It had very dry air.
Oh yeah.
There was a little touch of elevation, I believe, to it.
yeah.
But more than
ball
anything,
flies.
dry desert air, like big time, and balls just left the yard. He hit a ball that I honestly, guys, is still up in the air, has not come down. It was so high and so long that nobody even watched it leave, because they knew they couldn't follow it, they couldn't
Yeah.
see it, and that was his best recollection. It was just also a cool environment. I remember they did all the crazy different things, during
They drew really well.
and
Yeah,
stuff
every
like that.
inning there was something different.
Well, they had the hump
We're all veteran. We're all veterans of the Texas League.
they
Yeah.
had that hump in center field. Back in the day, there was railroad tracks that ran underneath the stadium in the outfield. I mean,
Yeah.
it was,
It's a little bit of ambiance.
yeah, exactly. So
Well, I worked the 1983 Texas League All Star game in El Paso, not because my partner and I were All Stars, but because we were the crew that was there.
Yeah, they're happy to be there.
yeah, El
Yeah, but
Paso is one of those places. It's not right down the road to go get in your Texas League. It's a long haul. As Dale has
Man,
told us in stories.
the
no kidding.
last uh, the last 2 or 3 weeks of the Texas League, I think we went back and forth El Paso, San Antonio, which if I remember correctly, was a 10-hour drive.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
of
So
nothing.
you would leave after the game and get in, the old 6 in the morning. You guys know the
Yes.
life. Sleep all day, work all night, like Dracula.
Yeah.
Um, so that's my other recollection of El Paso, is just going back and forth. So
Do you have
Billy,
a
I
go ahead, Dale.
remember it was about 2005. We opened in San Diego, and then we had the Dodger home opener, and it was a day game, and I was working with Tim Cheetah and Ron Culpa and Danny Isonia. So after the day game at Dodger Stadium, we're at the Hyatt, the Riot Hyatt, right there on Sunset. We go next door to it was the ranch or something, the Saddle Ranch, I think it was called, and they had a mechanical bull there and everything. We had, whatever, but we had a few adult beverages. We're about leaving, and then walks in a guy that we recognized immediately, Mark Cuban, who was the owner of the Mavericks, and especially early in his career, basically was fined practically every game for blasting the officials and whatever. But he, of course, doesn't know who we are. And I said, I'd had enough libations to say, Mr. Cuban, I said, I think we have a couple mutual friends. And he goes, oh, is that right? And I go, yeah, Bill Spooner, Bill Kennedy. And he looked, and he goes, I love Bill Spooner. and we told him, we introduced ourselves, told him who we were. He said, you're not leaving anywhere, and sat us down. And we sat with him and his guest probably, seriously, like 2 hours, just talking and stuff. And he was great. But I
yeah,
also know what he does to officials.
yeah.
I remember telling you also, and I think you talked to him, or when the next time you saw Dallas, you mentioned something about it. But what was your experience with Mr. Cuban?
So the one that comes to mind, and the reason we probably is I didn't take him too seriously and let him get under my skin. But I had a play. I remember this vividly, in Cleveland, Dallas at Cleveland, right at the end of the halftime, and it was a block shot. Does he take it off the board? Doesn't he, for a goaltending call? And I got a good look at it, and he does not take it off the board. And they come on, and then it's halftime right there. Buzzer a half a second later, and they want a goaltending call. And I had a great look at it. I knew it wasn't goaltending. And He comes on the floor and he starts giving me a rash. How can you miss that? You are too, do better. You're too good for that. They give you that, you're too good for that routine.
Right.
And well, we get into, going to halftime. Our first thing, pull that play up, pull it up, and I'm right, 100% correct. He does get it before the board, and so halftime, I go back out there, and usually the crew chief would inbound the ball. And so in this time, the ball wasn't going to be inbounded in front of the Dallas bench. It was going to be at the other end. Well, I was going to the end of the Dallas bench and asked Mr. Cuban what he thought of the call because he knew I was right. So I did. And I went out there and I said, Mark, I said, anything you want to say to me now? And he just kind of gives me a wry grin. Like I go, sorry would work right now. And he goes, I got that play right. I said, so you got to lay off sometimes. And he just kind of went, yep, I got you. Okay, got he was cool about it, and I was cool about it too. But that might be one of the reasons right there. But that happened, and I said, I cannot let this go.
Yeah.
This is my chance, so I took it.
He was fined a lot of money.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I mean, a lot because it was happening all the time, and that's one thing about the NBA and other leagues. They fine people in baseball.
Yeah,
it's stupid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He could have bought another NBA team with the money he got fined with.
Right.
Speaking of NBA teams,
Well, did you see the Lakers are being
ahead.
sold for what? $10 billion or something like that?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Does that make them the highest rated franchise? No,
I think them and the Yankees are up there, and the Cowboys, believe it or not.
And I think there's a soccer team, obviously in Europe.
Oh yeah.
Manchester United is worth something like that too. I think.
Yeah, it's amazing. When we all started, me playing baseball in high school in the 70s, and Dale and Jimmy being umpires early on, in the 80s and 90s. The sports have changed so much over the last 30, 40 years. You look back at the films now of NBA finals or NBA highlights, and it was a fluid game. There's not, today there's so many tantrums going on the court. Everybody's throwing a fit like it used to be in baseball. At pitch outside and some guy go ballistic. It was like every night. Now, back in the day, it wasn't like that. You knew if a guy got a technical back in, when Wilton Russell played, it was deserved. And it was a lot rougher back then because a lot wasn't called. You know what I mean? It was as the story goes, Bill Russell told a story about every Thanksgiving when Wilt played for Philadelphia, they would come up to Boston to play the Celtics, and they would have dinner at Russell's house with his mom cooking. And then, as Russell said, they'd go to the garden and beat the hell out of each other. That was the way it was back in the day. They didn't think anything of it. That's the way the game was played. You get hit, they're gonna not cry, and things like that. It was, I guess what I'm trying to say is it looked like it was more of a rougher game back in the day. You know what I mean? With elbowing was nobody cared back in the day. You got elbowed no matter what.
Well, Bill, you had those early '90s Pistons that were notorious
Bad
for
boys.
a lot of physicality.
Well, one of the reasons I think is before '88 is there's a two referee crew.
Right.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's it's impossible to referee a basketball game with two guys.
I agree, yeah.
But that was the standard back then because the game was so much slower. Even before that, let's say like 50s, 60s, it was a very, very slow game. So you could do it with two people, but then, the game changed, and now you almost need four because of the speed of the game and the craziness of it. So that was one of the reasons. So you really, you knew that you were not going to get some calls because they just couldn't be seen. So it didn't do you any good to be whining about it because your guy was going back and dunking on you when you were complaining and staying back on, complaining to the referee. So it was, kind of more of just a different type of game where players played through more because they were used to that because the calls were more difficult because of the two referee system.
Well, it was like Dale said earlier. The pitcher's having a great game, and then the analytics comes in. Oh, nope, can't face this guy. Got to bring him out, and he's got a two-hitter.
Hey.
Back in the day, guys just played. They didn't care. It was, hey, I'm tired. I'm still going to play.
Look at pitchers.
Yeah,
I mean, besides analytics, just pitch count.
yeah,
You know, you got a
exactly.
guy throwing a no hitter, and you try to take the ball from Gibson or Drysdale or those guys, because you just threw your 100 pitch. Yeah, well, I'm going to throw you over the center field wall if you just come out
The
here.
manager would have the ball stuck in his ear if it was Gibby. Gibby didn't care. Get the
I was
F out of here.
imagine going out to the mom on Bob Gibson. If you got to the foul line without, just getting burned with his X-ray vision, it would be amazing. I mean,
Right.
it would take a very brave man to walk up to the mound and take the ball from Bob Gibson.
Brave or stupid, we're not sure.
Yeah.
It's a fine line, I
Yeah.
believe.
Well, in the '63 World Series, Drysdale's pitching at home against the Yankees, and he walks by Mickey Mantle before the game, slaps him on the ass, and he goes, "Where do you want it?" He was going to nail him right out of the gate. But that's the thing. It was as we have all alluded to, it was a different era back in the day. Nobody cared. It was part of the game back then.
Speaking of fond, speaking of fond memories, obviously Dale and I both live in Portland, or have. I live in Portland full time. Dale, he's got his winter home down in Palm Springs. Do you have any memories of, or philosophical stories about the Trailblazers? And the only reason I ask that is because one name comes up all the time that I think about, that in the Trailblazers history, that was one of the, in my humble opinion, being an official or a professional official, was Rasheed Wallace. And was he as bad as everybody thought he was?
I guess at times, yes. But he just basically, I think he just felt he wasn't getting his calls, and he just didn't like referees.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with
he wasn't. He wasn't. He just, and the biggest thing with Rasheed is he wouldn't let up. Yeah, Rasheed, enough, stop. And he just kept going. And so you try to give him some, some leeway, and he just would, take it too far. So, he just, really expressed his opinions during free throws greatly and often and loudly.
I understand that.
That is true. There are guys in sports, athletes, that absolutely just don't like officials. I had a guy, Randy Hundley, in the Texas League, and he came out to give me a change one time, and he was barking at me all the time. Never swore. The guy never swore, and he barked every pitch. And I finally just asked him, I said, "Randy, you just don't like umpires, do you?" And he goes, "Nope," and turned around and walked away.
He's honest.
How can that be? You don't even know me. And
talking about
later on that game, he called me a cotton picker because he'd never swore. And I said, "Get the hell out of here." And he says, "I didn't swear." I said, "Yeah, but I know what you meant by the word cotton picker."
Well, there was a guy in the old ABA, Bill, you might remember him, John Brisker. This guy was probably the most badass guy of any guy who ever played sports. This guy would carry a gun in the locker room. And he disappeared in Africa under Idi Amin, and he nobody knows what happened to him. They figure he got killed by the whatever revolutionaries or something. But this guy was probably the badass of badasses in sports.
Well, he might have been Mike Niedermeyer and killed by his own troops. You never know.
You're a sneaky little shit, just like Niedermeyer.
Billy, something that I applaud you for, and I think every official would applaud you for. I think it was in 2011 or 10, somewhere there. You had a situation where a reporter thought he heard you say something, and tweeted it out or put it out there, basically saying you were cheating for the most part. I mean, not in so many words, but that's exactly what he was inferring to about a makeup call or something. Explain that situation and what happened with that, because when it happened, you stood up for yourself, obviously, but for officials in general, and a lot of people were really happy with that. And explain what happened.
So right towards the end of halftime, everything happens to me at the end of halftime, I guess. I have a play, and Kurt Rambis comes up kind of to the midcourt line, and complaining. He asked me about the play. I say, "Kurt, I'll take a look at it. And they know what that means. That means it's coming up halftime. I'm going to go in the locker room. I'll take a look at it,
Right.
and I'll get back to you. There was a AP reporter sitting close by on the table there, and he reported me as saying, "Don't worry, I'll get it back for you." As in, I'll do a makeup call.
Right.
And he wrote something to the effect. Bill Sperber, said, don't worry, Kurt, I'll get it back for you. And such is the state of refereeing in the NBA today. And we asked the league and I got a phone call the very next morning from security and one of our attorneys. And I knew I didn't say it, so I didn't even halfway recall the conversation because I knew what I said.
And it was a routine conversation.
A very normal conversation with a coach. And so luckily our union attorney was on that call with me because I was on with, NBA security and the attorneys. And they finally said, what is this about? And then that's when they said, well, we have a writer that's, alleging that you told the coach that, don't worry, I'll get called back to you. And I said, no, that's what I said. I said, you can ask Kurt. I said, I'd look at it and I'd get back to you on the call, on the play. And Kurt Rambis said the exact same thing when they interviewed Kurt Rambis. He goes, no, he told me he'd look at it but the AP wouldn't print a retraction and the league wouldn't print a thing. Hey, we investigated this. There's no merit to it. And so our attorneys and, it was a little scary at the time, but said, we need to stand up to this and decided to file a defamation suit. And so it culminated with basically me going on a deposition in Minneapolis, I remember, and it was in a conference room, and they put a camera at the other end of the conference table, and they have the big-time attorney sit right next to the camera, and he watches every little facial twitch you make. And the guy interviewed me for 8 hours on a deposition, and I basically gave him yes/no answers for 8 hours, maybe 7. I think we took a lunch break. And the very next day, they called with a settlement, of which I didn't receive a dime from, by the way. It went back to court, our lawyer costs for the union. And, like you said, kind of stood up for all officials that, hey, we do have integrity, and that's not something that's, that's not what's done. And so, luckily, I always had the confidence because I knew what I said.
Right.
And number two, I would never say something like what he alleged. None of us would, right?
Right. Did
if you the ball 6 inches, 6 inches inside, you're not going to tell him, well, the next one down the middle, I won't call a strike.
Right. But did they put out a retraction or apology?
They did. Yeah. On page 14, of course.
Right. Exactly. The damage is done, but
they did, saying, we're sorry. We never do it again. The funny part of the story, the culmination of the story, is I was back in Minnesota, maybe the following year, and I knew who the writer was, and he was just kind of a little squirrely little dude. And I walked over to the table because I was back when the writer sat right at the press table, right at the scorer's table, and so forth. And I think his name was, I'm trying to remember, maybe Jim, but I'm not sure. And I walked over there, and I'm stretching in front of him, warming up while they're doing, the lineups. And I go, so, how we doing tonight? Oh, good. I think he was kind of nervous when I said, so, how about we not do any fiction writing tonight? We just report things? He goes, I have that plan in mind. Good. I said, okay, we're okay. You and I okay, right? And he goes, yes, thank you. I appreciate that. I went, no, just make sure that, you hear the right thing, okay?
John Krasowski or something like that?
Something like that, yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
I remember his name, JP was his initials. For whatever reason, I remember his initials.
He's now working at Burger King as a hamburger flipper.
Yeah, and he got the drive-through. He got the order.
Oh,
wrong.
he got that wrong though. No, he can't. They took him out of the drive-through because he got getting the orders wrong. Remember?
It all turned out in the end. So
guys, we're coming up on it here. Bill, you were awesome. We want definitely. We just scratched the surface with Bill. We're going to have him back because we know he's really regaled us with a lot of great stories, and we're glad to have him. Thanks, Dale and Jimmy, for getting him. Bill, well, thank you for coming on.
Well, Jimmy, Bill coming on even after that disastrous first meeting where thank God I said I like beer. It might it might have been much worse than Yuma after that, but
Dale, it's like, when I played softball back in the day, after the game, you'd have 3 or 4 cases of beer and talk about the game. You weren't talking about the game, you were just getting drunk, and having a good time with your buddies. It's like after a game in St. Louis when you guys are in the umpires room and it's like 185 degrees on the field and there's more beer than you can shake a stick at.
listen, you got to stay hydrated.
Absolutely, that's your story and you're sticking to it. Bill,
Bill,
thank you for
thanks,
coming
buddy.
on. We
Hey,
really
enjoy
appreciate
guys,
it.
for having me, and let's do it again. Okay.
Oh,
Absolutely.
You can always
Hey,
tell how good one of these are is because it goes so fast, and this
You're
one
not
goes
kidding.
by really quick.
yeah,
So
this was Bill. This was a lot of fun,
this was
and
a good one.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed it. It was great.
he's Bill Spooner. He is the one and only Dale Scott, and
Hello.
the heartthrob of every female in the planet, Jimmy Joyce. I'm
Yes.
Bob Busser. Remember, always take the road to the left. You'll never know what you'll find. And
And
Dale, I'm gonna
subscribe.
beat you. I'm gonna beat you. Oh, damn you! Subscribe. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye bye.